Yoda. Bravo. Hi, my name is Kelly Borsheim. I'm a sculptor. And according to my mentor, Vasily Fedoruk, the word sculpture originally meant to remove materials. So that's what we stone carvers like to take pride in, because that's what we're doing. So here I'm working on a piece originally titled, Helping Hands. I wanted it to be ballerinas with in the middle of a movement of her sliding in between his feet, and then her sliding in and out, and then he's going to lift her up next. But it was going to be an abstract piece, and then I decided to make more details because the abstract kind of bored me after a while. So I'm trying this, and we'll see what happens. I don't know if you can see the holes through there. I like to put holes in the rocks in weird places, and here you can see some of the light coming through. Isn't that gorgeous how all this cutting down in here and stuff? It's not easy to do, but I like to do it. Okay, so I was going to tell you a little bit about yesterday. I made a video for doing the hair, and I was stuck because it's like this big blob. So what I did was I woke up at 3 in the morning and I was upset with myself. So I pulled out some clay and I made this little demo. You can see she's not really accurate or anything like that, and she's kind of, you know, a little bit nasty in the face because it doesn't exist. But anyhow, this gives me a reference because I was trying to decide what design. Do I want to make something geometrical? Do I want to make it you know, this or that or thing? And I decided to go more natural, and part of that is compositionally wise. I decided that if this had a lot of angles to catch the light, as you're seeing it here strongly now, what's going to happen is your eye goes straight to the high point of contrast. And the idea for this piece is called Helping Hands. So I don't really want you to go straight to her hair. I want you to go straight to the hands and the action between it. So I felt as though maybe a more organic, softer looking hair would give me the feeling you know it's hair, but at the same time remind you of what the subject is, because everything should reinforce the original idea. So anyway, alright, let me talk a little bit about the tools that I'm using. I've got these two tools here. This one's the more famous Dremel that everybody knows, but it costs a lot of money, and so I ordered 2 of these Von Haas, which were less than half the price. So that gives me a lot more, because I'm lazy. I don't like to stop and take time to change a tool head, so I usually put what I feel that I'm going to need that day onto the 3 different tools that I have. So you can see that the rock is quite small compared to my hands, so I'm using a lot of tiny tools, and I'm doing a lot of digging. So both of these I have on this armrest that came with the Von Haas, which was lovely because it's helpful to have it. I don't necessarily have it mounted in the right position for where the rock is now, but anyway, I use, this is a double cut carbide, no, it's not carbide, maybe this is carbide tipped, double cut tip with an extension here, you can see, and with the extension of the tool here, I don't have the body of the tool in there, so it really helps me get in and dig. You can see in between here, I'm trying to shape the face because the face has to go back. You see the angle where the face is here. It's not going to work if the chin starts coming forward. It's really awkward to do my own videos, isn't it? Okay, so now I'm trying to cut back up underneath the thumb. I don't know if you can see that. And sort of shape things without losing the arm of the man underneath it. So you can tell that I must have a lot of patience and be crazy, but I find that this makes the work more interesting to look at, and I usually try to get something that makes me feel a bit of awe. And when somebody is strange enough to have the patience to go in and do this, I don't know, I find it fascinating and interesting, and it makes the piece much better for me. So that's what I'm trying to go for here. But anyway, this tool is quite useful. I probably have several heads of these, or I did when I lived in Texas. I'm not sure where. I still have some things there and some things in Italy where I am now. Okay, so that's that tool. Another tool that I'm finding very useful that are these little diamond blades. They're cutting tools, okay? Do you see how thin that is? Let's see if I can catch the light. Yeah, maybe that's better there. So that's quite thin. It has diamonds on the front and diamonds on the back side, so it's really good if I want to come in like this and carve this way, okay? But really they're designed as cutting tools. More than grinding with the face tools, but obviously it helps to do both, because you often find when you're doing something like this that it's really easy to just kind of start angling them and slant your cutaway to open it up or to soften this edge right here kind of thing. So, however, I've got to be careful not to get over into it, and so that's why I also have other tools so that I can do this. This is also a double cut. I find the double cut works way better on these hard stones of marble and even other hard stones. So this is what I've got going on right here. And now you can see with my hair, I tried to emulate the shape that I had already cut out from the rock, if you've seen before some of the pieces. Today, or last night when I cleaned up the piece and did my thinking for the evening, I realized I just don't like how flat this is. You can see that that's the end of the stone, which usually I don't want you to think about that sort of thing. So to me that means I need to continue developing the three-dimensional forms of this. I haven't decided on her body since putting in the head if I want to slender down the top a little more. I wanted her to be a large figure and not, you know, a delicate waif kind of thing. But I mostly had started with a C curve here, so I wanted to keep that curve here. I may end up pulling off some of the shoulder blade. That's a little bit of shoulder blade because it'll be pulled forward as her arm goes in, and cut off some of the meatiness of the breast in here. But as I do some of these, I can get more form into the hair is what I'm ultimately getting at, because, you know, everything's connected. So if you change one thing, you've got to realize, if I cut this arm short, what does it do to this part of the arm? And then what does that do to that? And I have some proportion problems, but I'm not concerned about that because I'm not trying to copy reality right now. I'm trying to give an idea. And so you emphasize the ideas. So her hands may be a little bit large for a face. That's probably too large for the head, but I'm going with it because helping hands is the subject, and that's how it goes. So anyhow, you can see here on this side, maybe in the sun it's maybe a little harder, but I've started to blend it in with the body because hair sits on top of the form that it's attached to, or in this case of the back covering, because she doesn't have hair growing out of her back, of course. But it sits on top of another form, even on your scalp. It grows out of your scalp, not it grows into it, but it's not, anyway, you know what I mean. So you need to make sure you leave room for the face of that. See, for on her bangs, or as the Brits call it, the fringe, I've got it going over her forehead and over her cheek line here, you can see. So, okay, so I want to start developing. You can see how flat this totally is right here. And it's just started, but I start rounding it in. I get rid of these corners here. Let the hair is going to get thinner as it goes down. And you see how here I've got some bulk still in the curves, but then it goes really thin as it gets, and then down to the point it's almost touching. So this is what I'm going to work on today, and we'll see you in a bit. Thank you for watching, and subscribe to my channel if you like, and visit me at patreon.com, where I'll be putting more of these videos even than I do on Facebook. Ciao, ciao. Okay, I moved over here because I forgot to tell you that when you use these tools here with the long extension arm like this, I prefer not to put a kink in the hose. Do you see that? I don't feel like that's efficient for the tool because it's a rotary tool, so there's a thing twisting around inside that spins the tool. So I like to keep this as straight as possible when I work. And sometimes, although it's hard, let's see if I can put this on a thing. Let's see if I can, does that work? For my glasses, I can't actually see what I'm doing here, and plus the glare. Maybe I should put it over here. Maybe that's better. Let's see if I can do the glasses. Okay, you'll get the idea. Okay, stay down in this area. So when I was over there, I thought if I went like this to carve when the piece was turned around, then I would be putting a kink in this hose. I don't think that's efficient. And I also want my tools to last a long time. So I came back over here to keep this angle so that when I go, I can't really show you. I need to show you over here. Okay, do you see this part of the hair? I wanted to cut, I want to get more, I don't like this being a straight line because I'm trying to imply that she has wavy hair, and of course it gets thinner as it goes longer. So I want to start tapering it down to this point that I have way down here, and so you can see I've got a ledge here and a ledge here, so I'll be softening that. However, okay, so what I did was I've been using this to cut into this line, and I came over here to cut into the side. Okay, so I went like this to cut in that, and then I can just sort of knock that off. But I'm going to start developing, and also you can see on my drawings here. Let me wet that so you can see it a little bit better maybe. And get that clean of the dust. So yeah, so I put in some red marks, and as I said in my video yesterday, which never turned out, everybody has their own way of marking things, but I tend to put a circle around a shape that I want to not cut, that I want to leave that where it is. You can see up here on the head, I felt like I cut a little bit too much before I realized I wanted to make real heads out of this and not just an abstract shape. And I ended up, I want to save that. I can go smaller with the rest of the head if needed. Ciao, Rita. And then I can go smaller then, but I want to make sure that I just don't accidentally cut it when I get lost into doing different things. So I'll lower this, and I want this cascading stuff here. But anyway, so I want the curve, I do the round for my note taking, leave this, and then this where I have it solid in this case is where I want to cut grooves. And I added this groove later here because I forgot that I'm trying to make wavy hair. And I don't want straight lines so much there. So everything is going to emphasize the waviness, wildness of her lion mane. So anyway, I did that. The thing is, this is a marker, as I explained yesterday. These are sort of like the United States Sharpie markers. I think they're another brand, but it doesn't matter. I would never use this if I were close to my finished surface because marble is porous. And it sucks in a lot of things, and it might suck in this color because this color is intended to be permanent, which makes it worse. Normally I use chalk or crayons. Crayons also have wax in them, so sometimes if you get close to the surface, that's also not a good idea. In this case, because I can't chisel this stone because it just kind of shatters, I'm grinding it. And so I ended up using pencil, but I found that on some of my photos, you can't really see the pencil so well. And sometimes I can't, and since I'm also doing rotary tools, I'm making a lot of dust, so I end up wiping off a lot while I'm working, a little harder. In this case, I felt as though I'm far enough away from the distance, and I want to see what I'm doing right now, and I also wanted to show you what I'm doing. So I decided to go ahead and use this this way. But when I get closer, I'm going to probably go back to the pencil, and I work slower also when I'm closer to the finished detail. So, and here you can see yesterday, because I'm working with the light, you see this undercut here, and you see an undercut here. They're very thin, and the reason that they're thin is because if it's an open curve like this, you can see with my hand, the open curve, I still get a lot of light. I get less depending on the angle of the curve. However, if I have a line, I don't know if you can see, but the space that's between my two fingers there is much darker because the light doesn't go in. I mean, it's not a good example because, look, okay, here's maybe a good example. Can you see the reflected light inside my fingers? That when the hole is really close, the shadow is dark. And when I open up my hands, do you see the light that bounces from my fingers here into the shadow part here? It's a lot lighter because it's more of a concave thing. So I want these to be undercuts to separate the hair from the body, because as you can see here, even when it's all wet, you don't really see much of a shade difference, and I am sculpting light. So these are considerations, although I can make those considerations toward the end of the game. And look, there's a crack there, so I need to be careful. I need to be careful not to put too much work into this piece because there's also this crack up here, which is starting to go away, but I'm not convinced of it. I knew about this in the beginning, so it's my fault for choosing to progress, but I don't have a lot of stone here. I don't have a lot of ability to work at my home, so I just decided to go ahead and do something, because otherwise I get a little nuts not doing something. So, alright, so that's that. This is about the tools and about the safety of the tools and taking care of things. Also, you'll note these air vents here, they need to be blown out once in a while to make sure that your tool doesn't get all junked up with dirt inside. And you can see I've moved my model away. I moved my cameras away, my phone, everything that I want to keep clean. I move it away because, you know, dust is just one of those curious things. It likes to go everywhere. The Marco Polo. Okay, stop talking. Ciao, thank you. I also wanted to add that there's another reason that I use 3 Dremels, or three tools. I even do this with my die grinders when I use a compressor, actually. It's not just to have the different heads available immediately while I'm actually working. It's also because these motors get hot and the tool needs to rest. And I can keep going on all day long, but the tools can't. And I tend to forget about it, just like people do when they work on the computer. They forget to take a break. So it's really important to let your tools breathe more than even you want to. So that's another reason for having multiple tools, multiple heads, and rest times for everything, okay? Alternating them all. All right. Thanks, Yoda. All right, it's Kelly Borsheim. I'm back again with Helping Hands Marble Carving. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the composition and the turning of the forms. So right now, this is my sculpture here. Like that. Okay, so this is the top of the woman's head. Now you can see her hairband here, and then we go down to her hair, okay? I spoke about how I wanted this to be natural, voluminous, a lot like my model over here that I did in clay the other night, or actually the other morning. 3 a.m. You can't sleep when something's bugging you and you want to not miss your daylight hours, so you get up and do these weird things, but daylight's starting to get to be a commodity order now. Alright, so what I wanted to show you in this video is I put a piece of my camera box here black so that you can see this outline a little bit better in the bird's eye view, which is one of my favorites for troubleshooting a lot, even if it's the one that most people won't see, which in the case of a small sculpture is not going to be that rare, but of course in the larger pieces very few people see from up top. Okay, so you heard me mention that I didn't like the squareness of this, okay? It just gets... Let's put it over here. It gets flat on this plane and then curves under. And I want something to be more organic shaping. But this is the rock that I had to start with when I just started working on the hair. So coming back to this, let's see if I can get the angle properly. Okay, do you see how straight this is right here? I've started doing some curving into the hair that touches the back here. And this gives you an idea. So I still have a lot to do here. Let's see if I can get the angle for this. Okay, because maybe it's this. Do you see how as I change my point of view, what I'm really looking at is this angle here where the gray touches the black. Do you see how flat that is there? Here, also flat. Here, it's a little better, but I don't have enough undulation to make it interesting yet. And then I go into that. Okay. So, what I want to start doing is where I see this really, really flat part, go at this level, touching it, and go here, and go, okay, it's at this point. So here is where I need to start bending. Keep that volume there for now, although frankly I don't want it to be equal with this. So this is my center point. It will also give roundness to the torso if the part of the hair sticking out is the part that's right in the center of the body, because this is curving around and the hair is lying on the body. You can see I've got too much torso here. Alright, so this being the tall point, I can tell this is flush with this, so I really want to undo all of this stuff. Not undo, I want to keep some undulation in there. I don't want it to be a perfect sphere, although that is one way to develop it, would be to make a perfect sphere and then cut into that. Not sphere, but you know what I mean, semi-sphere. Okay, but I don't work that way, and sometimes I change my mind and I think I don't want it to feel like it's inside of a sphere. So yeah, this could be the outer point, but I still have to shape this shape. It's not going to be just flat like this. I have to shape it, and that gives me some more innies and outies. But sometimes I find that my mind has a difficult time shaping this because I've got too much rock here and here. So my brain, as I'm cutting into this, I'm thinking, oh no, I'm cutting too much because look, it's meeting up with this part and I don't want it to do that. I want it to be above. Okay, So I find for me, I've got to cut this stuff down to a different level first, and then I can shape this and feel like I really know what I'm getting at, what I want. Okay, so here you can see I've started to do some shaping, and I'm using the tool to my advantage. I don't know if you can see that very well here, but this this diamond little saw thing I've been using, I've been doing this, but I've been doing strokes in the direction that the hair would be. Of course, it's spinning and it's throwing off dust when I'm working, but I have to be careful because if I get too long of a straight line, it's going to lose everything that I want. So I would do it in the direction of what I would think the hair would be going. And I do want both of these sides doing a swirling thing, although I don't want them to be symmetrical. I don't know if that's because I have a hard time making symmetrical things or if I really, really honestly prefer a little bit of difference because, and I think it's the latter, but it could be a combination of two things. But generally, symmetry gives us a sense of calm and a sense of stability and security. And asymmetrical gives us a sense of surprise, off balance, off kilter. So I find that in art, compositionally wise, I like to see enough architecture, i.e. straight lines, to contrast with the romance, which I consider to be the curves. So if you have too much architecture and not enough romance, life is kind of boring. Yeah, everything's structured. Yeah, you feel secure and safe and everything, but where's the joy? However, the contrast is also true for me, that if you have too much romance, too much curve, you end up having spaghetti, which means no form at all, no structure, no sense of maybe this romantic thing can actually work because, wow, it's got some strength involved in it too. So I really like to find the right balance between this, and generally it often means little differences, but enough to have you notice them, or actually not really notice them. I want you to feel them, even if you can't put words to it, even if you don't know why. I really just like it when people say to me, I really love that piece of artwork, I don't know why. You don't have to know anything about art. You don't have to know what I have been thinking and what I've been doing. I want you to feel something, and that's the most important thing. So I've started on this side making a curve. I can see I've got too much chunk here, but I may want to keep some of that to keep some rock and roll. Do you see coming over to this now? Let's put that up there. See if you can see some of the curve that's developing. It's a slow start, but it's a start. And with stone, it's always slow, and I always take forever to think about everything, more than I probably need to. But my brain works that way, and I've accepted it. So, okay, and another thing is this right here. Do you see from this point of view, see how this goes into a nice gradual curve? Okay, it's lovely, it's pretty, it's feminine. This chunk I wanted to be different, but what I'm finding is I wanted to start the wave of the hair up in here. That's okay, so I started doing this. But I think this is too much still. And I don't think it's natural because the hair would fall flat here, and it may go out a little bit, but I think it's not going to chunk up right there at that place. So even though I want it voluminous here, and I don't want to lose the idea that you don't want it thin hair on the top and all of a sudden it magically blossoms out. Although in the case of my own hair, it does do that. Probably because I've got it cut in layers, it's shorter here. And then as I let it get long, the volume starts to curl. And so I'm aware of those sorts of things that can happen in natural hair. But I want to be realizing I'm making art. I'm not making a copy of real hair. But anyway, it's a mixture of the two things. So I'll stop talking and start cutting. First draw first. So I'm going to work on these parts because you've heard me say before that when I don't exactly know where to start because I get overwhelmed, I start with the part that looks the worst. Okay? So in this case, I want to start cutting this down. I'll start shaping some of this again and take another look. Worst first, and then your painting develops slowly, slowly. Thank you. I often like to look at my pieces while I'm in process. What I mean is when I'm not doing the sculpture, to have the sculpture in a place where I can actually see it. And that way, as I walk by, I'm getting different points of view. And it's amazing to me that a lot of times when I'm not thinking about the sculpture, I'm just moving from one room to another or doing one task to another. It's just me, Yoda, basta. Anyway, yeah. I see something wrong with it. So I decided to eat my lunch sitting in the sun because the temperatures have cooled a little bit now here in Tuscany. And I'm sitting on this panchina, which means bench, and it's a bit of a joke because it's almost broken, and it's been the intentions of my landlord to fix it for about 3 years now. And anyway, my neighbor keeps joking about it. So what I saw from this point of view while I was chowing down, let's see if I can move in here. I like how it's developing. However, I see that her body, the upper rib cage area, is way, way, way too fat. So part of it is I haven't curved the breasts around the front, but a large part of it is that the rib cage is not doing a ellipse enough. And I can see that even from this point of view. I don't need the profile to see that. So this is great because what it means is I can start to slender down the body a little bit more, and then of course the hair will have to get pushed back even more, but it will help me get more dimension out of this piece. So I'm going to move up here a little bit closer so I can get my pencil and show you exactly kind of what I do when I see a mistake, like not really a mistake because it's stone carving, you start big and you go small. That's the nature of the business, isn't it? Alright, let's put off this telephoto now that I'm closer. Alright, so again, you've probably heard me speak about this in other videos or some of my writings I do on my website kind of thing. When I'm not sure if I should make something larger or smaller, I tend to, first, what is the idea of the piece? But second, I tend to look at the qualities of masculine and femininity, because often I'm doing a figurative piece, or if I'm not, let's say I was doing a tree, I would say, okay, what is the basic idea? What's the reason that the tree is there? What did I want it to convey emotionally? And that emotion is going to give me a quality that now let me see how to say this. There tend to be a lot of traits that we associate with masculine qualities and associate with feminine qualities. As I spoke of before with the architecture versus romance, architecture would be the masculine energy coming in because they take care, the men take care of things, at least with the human race, in general speaking, also because nature does everything, and there are a lot of, different roles for the male-female versions of each species. But anyway, I'm talking about generally how people communicate. So we see men as strong, as sturdy, as reliable as the ones we go to for safety and comfort. The feminine is a lot more complicated, perhaps, but generally she's the softness that we bring to things. So anyway, the qualities of this female, because this is a woman. If this were a man, I would like the big broad shoulders, is what I'm getting at. But it's not. I can leave that for him. I can afford to go narrow up in this area, or smaller in this area, because women are known for our childbearing and the mothering things, other than the large breasts, if that's what rocks your world. But I mean, and generally I'm not worried about breasts so much. They come and go as whatever dictates. But I'm more interested in the relationships between the distance of the shoulders compared to the distance of the hips, that women tend to be broader, lower, and narrower. So we have the triangle, if you like, this way. Whereas men would have the broad shoulders and they would taper down to a narrow waist, typically. So anyway, it's the true triangles together give a lovely balance, a yin-yang, if you like. So, all right, so enough of that horse. No, probably beaten to death. So I want the outermost point. Obviously, the outermost point is going to be the shoulder joint. And inside of that comes the torso. But the rib cage, first of all, the rib cage is going to stop this little egg-shaped thing. It's going to stop, what am I doing here? The rib's going to go up like this to be an egg. Okay, but it's going to stop before you get into the pelvis bone. I mean, with my body, they're almost close together. They can almost touch, so I don't have a lot of space in here. But in general, people do. So I want to pull in the axis of where I want the outer part to go, and the rest of this rib cage area is going to turn in here, and the rest is going to turn in here. Now I can see, and maybe if I go into the bird's eye view, you can see also as well. I don't have my black cloth with me. Wait, here's my phone. Phone has a red cover. Okay, so you can see here, maybe put it up to the rib cage. Do you see? I don't actually, from my center point here, I decided I'm not going back enough. Do you see how I've got to wrap that in? Because if I have too much coming out at this space, what it does is it makes her body into a cube. I don't want her body into a cube. I want it into an ellipse. So this is the outermost point, and I go back from here. So all of this rock has to go away. It's too bulky. It's too much there. Now, because her arm is extended, her shoulder blade, which is a triangular sort of, I call it the Starship Enterprise, but that's just me, shape. But as your arm, you can do it yourself. Pull your arm forward and feel how your shoulder blade rotates from a triangle of this position, and it swings over like this, okay? So I need to be aware of that, but I'm not putting in every muscle. I'm not putting in every indication. I'm putting in a lot, probably more than I should. But in any event, I want to go under here. I want to show that this is the shoulder joint. So I can cut away. I'm going to leave this for now up here. And I'm going to cut this and this and this. So again, that's my note taking. I'm drawing actually the lines that I want, and I can see this is too flat here. I'm gonna probably come up and add a little bit of rock and roll there. But right now, I want to be careful of that. So make sure I've got the position I want for the arm. Anyway, so this is my middle point, okay? And I want this to stay out. And then I'm going to curve from there in. I'm not going to worry as much about the shoulder blade stuff because it's got to go in quite a bit before I even get to a bone that's resting on top of the rib cage. So that's what I'm going to be working on next. I'm not going to work into the hair, but I am going to stop here. And then once I get this down, all of a sudden it's going to be quite obvious how thick that hair is and how thick do I really want it. And then I reevaluate again because I still want to keep my C curve there. So I've got to be careful with that. Anyway, that's some of the thoughts that are going on in my head, and I love your feedback. I would appreciate it if you leave a comment in the space and ask me some questions or, give me some crits. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.